Hello, and welcome to the last day of 30 days of PM series where we've talked multiple topics when it comes to product management. Our last video was about growth loops and how you can leverage habit forming behaviors of users and get them to use your product on a daily basis to get their task done. Our topic for today, which is our last topic for in our 30 days of PM series, which is very wide and very broad, which would essentially be a 30-day series just to talk about this topic called product led growth. But we'll try to give an overview and just a simple rundown of what product led growth is and how you can leverage it to increase sales, boost activation, and retention of your product. So, when it comes to product led growth, it is a strategy that uh, is very prominent in SaaS companies that want to scale further and scale and grow their user base, not just from a normal B2B sales reach out perspective where you work with businesses, but also using this PLG motion, you try to attract the users first and get them onboarded into your application, probably with a limited set of features, get them interested within the product, get them to start using and leveraging it as part of their workflow and make it very simple and straightforward to use it. And then eventually that becomes very prominent within the organization you want to sell, and then it leads to your product led sales and generating revenue for your organization. So product led growth is a motion that many companies do where they start off by offering a free tier and a free set of features to you, and then as you grow and scale over a certain threshold, you get charged a subscription or a recurring fee, or in cases of larger deals you work with the sales team and get sort of a contract done and use the product. So essentially the main piece of the puzzle here is your product itself. Your product takes the center stage, and the features and the value it delivers is at its core when it comes to a product led motion, and you introduce it to users through various marketing and other tactics that you make as part of your product led growth model. There are multiple resources online that talk about product led growth. Here are a few benefits as covered in this Substack article, where it essentially mentions that with product led growth, users get to experience the product firsthand, which leads to shorter sales cycle, a better user experience because there's no onboarding or white glove service when it comes to a product led growth model. Your product speaks for itself and guides users such that anyone who is new to the product or even to your industry trying out your product has no issues or trouble going through the whole process, getting set up and starting to use your product. And this always comes into mind when releasing a product led growth feature and offering a free trial, so to say, when you are experimenting with product led growth motions, is to have a very good onboarding and user experience for users where you don't have to involve multiple engineers and customer success folks to get the user understand what the platform is and how it starts working. It should be very straightforward and available for you. The advantage of product-led growth is because your product is at the center stage, you don't have to invest a lot of resources when it comes to sales outreach and business development. You definitely want these functions to exist even if you have a product-led growth motion, but essentially a lot of the burden or a lot of the heavy lifting is done by the product itself, which leads to a lower cost of acquisition and high revenue per employee because the product is doing all the talking for you. How this model works, it sort of works a little different from your sales led motion, where instead of the outreaching and figuring out who are my buyers and my ideal customer profile, I target a niche set of customers or provide or promote it among the personas that I want to target, provide these users with the ability to use the platform for a given period of time, and then from there carry out the process of either acquiring the user or following through with the sales led motion as well if required. But generally, in the sales led motion, the first piece is just getting hold of the customer and your ideal customer, getting into the stage of talking to them and getting their use cases better, and then eventually heading into a POV, a POC stage, and then the evaluation, and then trying the user to use the platform themselves during this stage, and then eventually making a deal if all things go right. Whereas if you see, the engagement on the sales led motion is towards the end, and whereas in the product led motion it's much further ahead, where instead of trying to monetize on the user when it comes to sales led, you provide user with the ability to validate themselves and let the product do the talking, and then monetize on your words with the quality of feature that you provide. So this is about product led growth and how it generally works. There are multiple products. This is often seen in SaaS companies, where these large products are built in order to catch attention and get some use case of the customer solved in a very easy and efficient manner, and then in order to scale that and to make it available for all of their customers, they have to pay a specific fee. A very simple example of that is Zoom during the COVID days started out, and even before COVID, started out as a video conferencing tool, and from there it became sort of the default when it comes to video conferencing and conference calls within your organization. Uh, so that's one motion where it started out as free. You can use it free for the first and schedule 40-minute meetings to begin with, and if it goes above an hour, it disconnects. You can join back again. But in a situation where you have an organization enterprise that holds multiple meetings, you don't want them to end abruptly after 40 minutes. And this is where their motion kicks in, where they have a constraint, but now to get rid of this constraint, you have to purchase a subscription or a plan for either as an individual or as an enterprise or as a small or large organization. So that is how these flywheel and product led motions build. But the first part of it is obviously acquiring your users, set and calculating all these other metrics and details on how you can grow the business, because a lot of the times companies offer free trials and free tiers of product, which are more than sufficient for the user, and for not having to upgrade to the other tiers. So you have to be very strategic when it comes to what you plan to offer as free and what you plan to offer in the enterprise tier, and how often do you want to then, for a user who has just naturally or organically reached out or has come across your platform, how do you then activate and generate revenue from this user? So there are a few metrics here that you can use to calculate and keep in mind when sort of building this motion. It's not very simple. There have to be a lot of things that get into play and have to be done right, because for example, if you have a very complex product that is to a very specific niche and it's doing things a different way than what the market or the competition is doing, you would just leaving it out to the user to figure out might not help, and probably they might not be able to explore all the functionalities and all the capabilities of the platform to begin with. So it has to be very strategic and very planned as to how and what do you offer in this product-led motion and during this free trial period, and then generate revenue from customers where they feel there's this additional capability I would really want to have, but it's not available in my current plan or current year. So I sort of subscribe to this feature and subscribe to this product by paying a fee. There are very great resources when it comes to product led motions and how things work here. There are examples, as you can see, from this website called Product Led, which talks about the definition, examples, and how it's taking off when it comes to the general and standard sales led motions that companies have built and sort of scaled with. But there's this new method in town that's worth checking out when it comes to scaling, and this usually happens as at a point where you want to generate uh, sort of exponential growth when it comes to revenue, and make it available for a larger set of customers, not just your enterprise and large companies, but also make it available for small and medium businesses, where they can leverage but also not pay the huge fees in comparison to the large enterprises, but still be able to use the same capabilities but at a lesser fee with a few lesser features available. So there are great resources from Lenny, where he talks with Hila, who has worked at Reforge, GitLab, and now sort of mentors and consults various startups when it comes to their product-led growth motions. You should definitely check this podcast out if you are interested. There are resources here that talks about the podcast and the resources available, where she talks about how you activate, how do you convert these users, and how Zoom for was an example of a PLG company. They also talk about the messy part of it and how you can get things wrong if you've not done it right, and how it can actually lose value for customers and also potentially hit you financially when it, because you might expose it to multiple users who are using your product for free but are not converting. So that sort of brings with it its own challenges, and you have to be very data heavy and data relied when it comes to decisions being made when building a PLG motion and a PLG team that takes care of all of this. A lot of the times PMs are involved in this process, and they sort of make decision as to what features are available and how do you do the pricing of this in combination with sales and other teams. So yeah, uh, there's this other resource as well from Hila, where this pot this post on Substack talks about how you have these 5 steps that you want to ace when it comes to building a PLG motion, where you first start with your funnel and who do you target, and pick a starting point of your feature and anticipate common pitfalls. Maybe the UI is a little clunky and it's not straightforward to figure out what a specific feature does, but you have to be prepared for that. There are examples on how you can leverage and pick a starting point where it can just be an integration, for example, to the Atlassian marketplace that extends your platform capabilities into Atlassian products. As an example, you also have examples of Shopify and other sort of software and SaaS products that leverage B2B but in their own ways and mechanisms. You should also be ready to anticipate pitfalls, as I told, and set up the right infrastructure and build the right team that looks at data, looks at insights, and looks at behaviors of users when using a PLG based product and a PLG based offering, and then try to convert them into actual customers who subscribe and pay revenue and help your SaaS product grow with additional revenue. So that's it about product led motion. I will link all these resources in the YouTube description, and also this resource from the Lenny podcast, where they talk about how activation, retention are important when it comes to product led growth motions.
I think every single company has to first focus on being product led and retention, period. The only way that you will ever have any chance of acquisition being product led is if you nail your product led retention. Let me break it down. Retention falls into 2 main KPIs, which is activation and then engagement. If your product is not able to activate and, more importantly, engage via habitual loops and be in the habit forming zone, then you have no chance to hooking an acquisition engine into your product. Because acquisition and product led means users invite or users refer or users create content that attracts other users. Well, if your users are not habitually using your product, there's less and less opportunities for you to actually create any sort of product led acquisition. So never start with product led acquisition. You first always have to start with product led retention, activation, and engagement. Then you can choose, is your product has a relationship of one to many? If it has a collaboration at its core, say Slack or Miro, or even Amplitude, or does it have more of a single mode relationship? So let's say Snowflake. There's not one to many relationships there between users. Well, if you have one to many relationships, product led is a fantastic way for you to prototype that model. If you don't have them, then it becomes increasingly hard. And most of the B2B products don't have that one to many relationship, so it's very difficult to stand up product led acquisition. So you rely on marketing led and sales led, and that's fantastic. Those are fantastic growth models as well. The only other question becomes in the self-serve monetization. That's product led. Otherwise, you go in the sales led and you chase after those large contract values. And you can still be product led and monetization with sales team via product led sales, or you can just be self-serve if you have a specific segment that is valuable for. But the question there is your use cases and your market matureness to handle self-serve, or do you need that sales touch? Every industry and every sector is going through transformation at different velocities. So even if you don't have that product led sales or self serve in your industry now, I guarantee you it will pop up in the next 10 years. And if you're not going to introduce it, you will get disrupted by it.
So yeah, that's about product-led motion and how you need to essentially uh, factor in all the possibilities of the product you're building. What is the main USP of this product, and will product like growth actually make sense for me, or am I good with just doing marketing and working with sales? So take a look. This has been about product-led growth and how you can build products and think in a way in order to scale and get those users onboarded and scale your company forward and build your SaaS product that has multiple users, not and multiple mm, relationships, and leverage the product-led growth model. So yeah, this has been about product-led growth. With this, we come to an end to our 30 days of PM series, talking about various topics from the product management space and how a typical product manager through their journey and their career goes through all of these problems and tries to solve for them. So do check out our previous video if this is the first time you're looking at our series, and uh, learn a little more about product management.